Chapter 3. You. Who are you? Most of us have a pretty good grasp on who we are, right? We know what we like, we know what we don't like, we know what we believe in, and we can differentiate between right and wrong. I'd like to invite you to do a fun little exercise here, so grab a pen, a paper, to jot down a few of your thoughts. We're going to see if we can not only figure out who you are, but also someone else of your choosing, anyone you desire. Let's start by making a list of 5 words describing who you are. Use any 5 words you can think of that best fits your own perception of yourself. Try to be honest, but don't overthink this exercise. Now make a list of 5 words that describe someone you know. Who are they? It could be your husband, wife, brother, sister, cousin, or neighbor. Love them or dislike them, it doesn't matter. You can do this with as many people as you wish. It's actually quite informative. Okay, now our list is made and we are ready to do a little digging. Take a look at your list. On each list, cross out any words referring to an occupation. An occupation is how you earn money, not a characteristic of you. Next, cross off any words that refer to an outcome of some sort. Words like winner, loser, or any derivative of the words. These are not states of being. They are states of ending and conclusion which can only be accessed in the past. They have nothing to do with now. Now, of the words left on the list you've made, circle each word with a positive meaning and underline all the words with a negative meaning. Once you've done this for each list you've made, count up all the circle words and underline words, and this will give you a pretty good idea of your own opinion of yourself. I'll describe some positive perspectives you can develop here. If you have no words to circle or underline because they refer to your occupation or state of success, then I'm sorry to report, but your awareness of who you really has been severely skewed by the environment you surround yourself in. There is no possible way for you, in this moment, to be a winner or a loser. The same goes with your occupation. If you love your job and hope to do it forever, that's wonderful. What I'm saying is, if we as a species didn't use money, if everything was abundant and readily available in whatever quantities you desired, would you still do that job? Would you spend the same amount of time doing it every day? For the lucky few of us with the ability to say yes, congratulations to all of you. To everyone else, this is the first part of the identity that must be understood as false. You are far more than your occupation and far more than the outcome of a game. If your lists are filled with more positive words than negative, then you probably have a pretty good perception of yourself, which is not necessarily a good thing depending on what the words are. Words like loving, caring, helpful, and courteous carry a far different focus than words like handsome, beautiful, successful, and wealthy. The first set of words is focused outward toward others. The later is focused inward toward self. I would like to point out again that these are not statements of judgment, they are mere observations of what you wrote. If your lists are filled with more negative words than positive, odds are good that you have some self-esteem issues that will certainly be worked through and understood before the conclusion of this book. Words like selfish, angry, timid, and shy are all words that describe, among many other things, someone that doesn't feel worthy or accepted. Words like ugly, stupid, poor, and boring are all words that carry a huge amount of emotion. If you have these words on your list, or any similar words, you're not alone. There's a large portion of the global population that have been worn down by their environment to have a similar perception of themselves. This is unacceptable and will no longer be tolerated. This is the reason for this book. If you had any idea of who and what you are, those emotions would not be part of your existence. You can extrapolate this thinking to the other people you made a list about. Here are a few more questions to ask yourself as you go through each word in the list of each person. Question 1. Why did you choose that word to describe that person? Question 2. What did that person do to make you feel that way? Question 3. When that person did that, did they intend to make you feel that way? Or did they simply do something and you chose to get offended? Odds are good if you use negative words to describe someone, you realize it's possible you could be angry about nothing. You may be holding a grudge simply because you feel like you've been wronged in some way. Now, ask yourself, if you were in his shoes, living in his life, would you have done something differently? Would you have been intending harm by what you did? If you made a list for more than one person, were the lists negatively orientated or positively orientated? Someone who makes positively orientated lists for several people tend to be more appreciative of the people around them. Someone who makes negatively oriented lists about several people tend to be more self-centered in their thinking and will tend to blame everyone else for the problems in their lives. Please remember, my intention by doing this exercise is not to berate you or make you feel small by saying someone is self-centered. I'm simply stating what is. These lists were made by you, and they're a tiny glimpse of who you are in this current moment in time. There's no need to be offended by what is or take it personally. Identification of where you need emotional investigation is an unfortunate requirement of the process of evolution. You must be honest with yourself about who you are. Otherwise, your environment will constantly slap you in the face with that information until you wake up. What are emotions? I was watching a documentary a few years ago about the evolution of the tortoise on the Galapagos Islands. They described the process of evolution in reference to the length of the tortoise's neck. As the tortoise moved throughout the islands, they ate all the plant life within reach until there was no longer any food growing for them at that level anymore. So any tortoise with a neck long enough to reach their higher food was able to eat, live, and reproduce, thus passing along his genes with a long neck trait to his offspring. Any tortoise that couldn't reach the food due to the length of its neck died. So, if you're a tortoise living on one of the Galapagos Islands, there is an evolutionary advantage to having a long neck. It gives them a better chance of survival. So what do you think may be the evolutionary purpose for emotions? On an evolutionary basis, why do we get angry? Why do we feel sadness or happiness? Why do we sometimes feel excited while other times we can barely pull ourselves out of bed? If there is an evolutionary purpose for having a long neck or sharp claws, why not emotions? They must be there for a reason, right? What if the only reason we have emotions is to help us evolve? That would make sense. But evolve what, you ask? Evolve what they affect, of course. Your consciousness. The truth is that emotions are the key to everything. Until you begin to understand your emotions, you will wander around your world lost in a perpetual loop of infinite energy, reacting to everything in your environment, never understanding why you are constantly having to fight fate. Human beings, along with every other species on the globe, have emotions to help us understand our environment. So if you wander through life, suppressing your emotions and battling the cruel world around in some attempt to win or prove something to someone, you're completely missing the point. Here is a very simple breakdown of what the above paragraph is saying. 1. You have emotions to help you evolve. 2. You have emotions to help you understand your environment. 3. If you don't understand your emotions, you don't understand your environment. 4. If you don't understand your environment, you will never evolve. Now, if you're not interested in evolving as a human being, that's okay. Like I said before, maybe in your next life. For everyone else, please continue reading. To begin understanding how emotions work and why they are, imagine the emotion of anger. What does it look like? Imagine the image of anger floating in front of you, like a light reflecting off rippling water, waving back and forth in the air in front of you like a ghost. The emotion of anger is now an energetic entity all on its own, existing in a place without you. It has no awareness of you, of who you are, or that you even exist. As you stare in wonder and amazement at this entity floating in front of you, it shoots straight toward you and disappears into you as it hits you in the chest. Your heart starts to beat faster, your hands are starting to shake, and all you want to do is scream at someone. This entity, this emotion anger, has now entered your body. Because it's unaware of your existence, it will stay inside your body for as long as you let it. It is anger, and it vibrates at a certain frequency. As long as you hold that frequency with your thought, anger will vibrate with you simultaneously as one entity. It will affect your thoughts, decisions, and view of everything you perceive until you decide to let it go. All you have to do is notice it, realize what it is, and let it go. Change your thoughts to something else. Anything else at all. Think of cuddling with a puppy or something similar. The emotion will stay with you as long as you allow it. Holding on to anger is a choice you're making on a continual basis. No one else is doing it for you. If you can imagine all of your emotions are entities themselves, passed from being to being, causing a never-ending chain of events. You'll notice that no one has ever done anything to you. With every single memory you have, whether good or bad, every emotion you felt was a choice you made. And every choice you made subsequently was either clouded by that emotion or brightened by it. You decided to be sad sometimes. You decided to be happy sometimes. There's not a single case of anything that's ever happened to you where you didn't decide how you should be feeling. Which means the only person that keeps screwing you over and holding you back is you. Learning from your emotions. As I learned more about my own emotions, I was a little distraught by what I found. All in one thought, I understood how every fight I've ever been in was my fault. Every single person I looked at with hatred and anger wasn't doing anything wrong. They weren't doing anything to me at all. They were doing something, and I chose to be offended by it. I was the only one seeing what I wanted to see. I heard the story I wanted to hear. As I ran through every memory like a Rolodex in my mind, it was as clear to me as my own reflection. This was the most powerful realization I have ever had, and it was the trigger point of my emotional evolution. Growing up in a society where men don't cry, and showing any sort of emotion provokes the uncomfortability for everyone around you, it's not difficult to see why we block out our feelings and emotions to a point considering them the enemy. We believe we live in a cold and cruel world filled with hatred, killing, and death. It's much easier to exist if you can learn how to stop feeling things, especially when you have an affinity toward chaos and violence. Feelings are more of a hindrance than they are helpful. Once the connection was made in my brain with the idea that perhaps I'd been causing all my own problems, I noticed another pattern. On a daily basis, while I was minding my own business doing whatever I found myself doing, people would ask me if I was angry. Why did people always ask me that? What's wrong with these people? Just because I don't walk around with a goofy smile on my face all day doesn't mean I'm angry. These were all the thoughts I had for months while arguing with anyone who showed any concern for my state of happiness. My next epiphany was triggered by my dog Lilo. In my recent past, I spent a couple years building batteries in my garage. It was convenient to be able to work from home. I could go to work in my underwear if I felt like it. I could walk inside and get lunch in just a few steps and even take a nap whenever the mood would strike me. It was an ordinary day filled with the mundane tasks of packing batteries for shipment. I was going in and out of the house to grab different things, moving at a pretty brisk pace as I flew up and down the entry stairway. I grabbed something from the kitchen and shot back down the stairs heading back to work when I realized I forgot my energy drink. I thought to myself, shit, you always forget something, stupid ass. Feeling disgusted with myself, I got to the bottom of the stairs, abruptly stopped, turned around, and ran back up the stairs. As I reached the top landing, my entire reality was shattered with the concussive force of a hand grenade. I was overwhelmed with emotion and proceeded to cry like my world was ending, had ended, and was never the reality that I thought it was. When I got to the top of the stairs, I looked down and seen Lilo, the sweetest dog on earth, was cowering in a puddle of her own urine because of the way I walked up the stairs. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was all my fault. Every fight, every argument, every moment of pain I have ever inflicted was caused by the way people were perceiving me. Now, it all made sense when I heard Jason Silva say, "I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am." I wasn't hiding what I was thinking about people or what I thought about myself. I was wearing all of my hatred and disgust like a bright orange sign saying, "I hate everything and everyone." I suddenly found myself in a completely different universe. My entire life was changed by the way my dog looked at me. I could see how terrified she was by my presence, while I thought I was in a good mood. It brought into perspective how everyone must have been perceiving me my entire life, and how I looked back at them because of their perception of me. I didn't understand how I could have missed it for so long. I didn't understand why no one told me. Is it because they were too scared of the way I would react? Like I would fly off the handle if they told me I was being a dick. Or was I missing something? This seems like a problem that most people encounter every day, right? If we are all doing the same things, based on what we assume other people think, where did the original thought come from? Why was this so goddamn confusing? If I'm angry because that guy is looking at me funny, and he is looking at me funny because he thinks I'm angry, where did the anger come from? It's like this anger wasn't present until him and I were there to experience it together. And when we arrived to experience it, it was drawn to us like a magnet out of thin air. It was like the anger found two people that like to be angry, and it drew them together to be angry because that's what we were seeking. This is the law of attraction in the most simple format. It's both a complete definition and the minuscule tip of the iceberg. It is both the most misunderstood and the most vital piece of what has been hidden from us for millennia. The entire planet is focused on fear of the other for a reason. There's a reason we as a species are fed mystical stories full of riddle in all our religious texts. This is the key to global domination by spreading the agenda of consumerism and capitalism all over the world. You can think of the emotion of anger, as we talked about it above, as having the exact same properties as every other emotion you feel. Each emotion you have is triggered by the thoughts you're thinking. Imagine as the emotion is running through your body, it carries with it a certain vibration. When you're happy, you're vibrating at one frequency. When you're sad, you vibrate at another. Whether you're nervous, anxious, terrified, elated, ecstatic, or uncertain, all of these feelings, along with every other emotion and range therein, all carry a specific frequency of vibration. And when you are thinking sad thoughts, you're going to feel sad, and you're going to vibrate with the emotion of sadness. This will bring you more things to be sad about. Learning from your emotions doesn't need to be a traumatic experience like the one I've described above, as long as you understand you have emotions for a reason. If someone says or does something that makes you feel a certain way, don't react. Instead, take a deep breath and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way right now? What did that person do to make me feel this way? Did that person do that to me? Or did that person do something and I decided to feel this way about it? When you start asking questions like this, you'll very quickly see that you have no reason to be upset or offended or anything else for that matter about something someone else is doing. If you really want to get a feel for why someone is acting a particular way, try putting yourself in their shoes. I guarantee you'll understand their emotions. Other people's shoes. The concept understanding who you are is not something easily attained if you've never seen from outside your little window of reality. As we know, the world we see is a direct reflection of the beliefs we hold, which, in a matter of speaking, means we can't see past our own bullshit. So how are we supposed to get an outside opinion if no one wants to offend anyone? If a person is incapable of telling you something in a way they believe you can receive it, then they'll most certainly keep their thoughts to themselves. So how do you get someone else's perspective without them giving it to you? How can you possibly interpret something that you can't access? Make no mistake about what I am asking you here. What I am asking is this. Is there a way to understand what another human being is thinking without having to force them to express their thoughts? In short, is telepathy possible? Is it possible to read someone else's mind? Contrary to popular belief, it turns out the answer is yes. We are a telepathic species, without an awareness of our abilities. Oh man, there he goes, is the thought that crosses a lot of readers' minds after that statement, I'm sure. Rest assured, I'm not stating that I am telepathic and can read people's thoughts. That would be silly. What I am saying is that we can all read the thoughts of everyone around us. We are just not aware that they are other people's thoughts. We assume it originated in our own heads. This is a pretty deep subject, so I'm going to return to it in Chapter 4. The easiest way to understand what someone is thinking is to imagine how they are feeling when they are thinking it. Body language is a study that you can devote thousands of hours into learning and still not have a full understanding because there are infinite numbers of variables. The ability to read a person's body language accurately is an incredibly complex process, but you can learn how to teach yourself to do it intuitively in seconds. The key lies in your own imagination. This isn't something even you need someone else around to train. You can turn on the television, watch a video on your phone, be in the room with one person or a stadium with thousands of people. Wherever you see another human being, take notice of when they have a new thought sequence. What you're looking for is a reaction. When someone is feeling an emotion, they will move their body accordingly. The only thing required for you to understand the emotion someone else is having is to imagine your body or your facial expression configured in the same way. If the person is hunched over, imagine you are hunched over. How do you feel? What would you feel like if your body was configured in this shape? What you will notice is your mood will change, the chemicals in your brain will change, and you will begin to feel the actual physical emotion the other is feeling. Think about what you know about them while holding the emotion they are holding. You'll know then all you need to know. All that's left is understanding how to interpret the data you receive from them, how to read the informational packet you downloaded from the universe out of thin air. As the saying goes, as above, so below. When you put your body into any configuration, the chemicals in your brain are released to mimic the feeling your body is telling it to. Understanding this concept is the first step to understanding how to let your intuition, or higher self, guide you through your experience on Earth. Checking your vibration. The term vibrate has been used rather widely in reference to emotions and how you're feeling. Often it goes hand in hand with someone talking about the law of attraction or creating your own reality in one way or another. There is so much information out there and so much misunderstanding, it becomes easier every day to claim the whole idea is nonsense. I see links all over the internet about how to win the lottery with the power of positive thinking, claiming the power of magic words will bring you all the fancy little gadgets you desire. These ideas are on the right track, but are lacking in any sense of statistical probability, which makes them easily discarded by the general public. The general public, who require physical proof of what's real. If you can't smell it, or feel it, or taste it, or touch it, it clearly doesn't exist. One of the world's leading physicists, Miku Kaku, in a short video produced by BigThink.com, stated, "All the tiny subatomic particles and quarks that we see in nature are nothing but musical notes on a tiny vibrating string. Physics is the law of harmony that you can write on those vibrating strings. Chemistry is nothing but the melodies you can play on interacting vibrating strings. The universe is a symphony of vibrating strings, and what is known as the mind of God that Einstein wrote about for the last 30 years of his life is the cosmic music resonating through 11-dimensional hyperspace. In fact, we are nothing but melodies, nothing but cosmic music played out on vibrating strings and membranes, obeying the laws of physics, which is nothing but the laws of harmony of vibrating strings." Another of our leaders in scientific thought of modern times is Brian Greene. He gave a TED Talk explaining how our understanding of the universe has evolved from Einstein's notion of gravity and space-time to superstring theory, where minuscule strands of energy vibrating in 11 dimensions create every particle and force in the universe. Atoms are not the end of the story. They have little electrons that swarm around a central nucleus with protons and neutrons. Even the protons and neutrons have particles inside of them known as quarks. Here's where conventional ideas stop, and here's the new idea of string theory. Deep inside any of these particles, there is something else. There is something else in a dancing filament of energy. It looks like a vibrating string. That's where the idea of string theory comes from. He went on to state, they produce the different particles making up the world around us. This is what the ultra-microscopic landscape of the universe looks like. It's built up of a huge number of these vibrating filaments, vibrating energy, and vibrating different frequencies that produce these particles. The particles are responsible for the richness in the world around us. I could list 1,000 quotes from 1,000 very intelligent individual scientists that have come to similar conclusions. Everything that we experience in our universe is simply our interpretation of energy across the set of vibrating strings and membranes. No, string theory hasn't been proven yet. When our species finally does develop and understand the proper mathematics, I'm certain that our scientists will confirm the existence of multiple dimensions and vibrating energy. This is the only probability available to this reality. The only variable remaining is time. Which is unfortunate for the guys doing the math, since it's so difficult to see past our own reality bubble. There are too many variables in their equation because of their distortions of perception. They said time doesn't exist. So why do they include it in the math? Time is a figment of our imagination. As such, anything with a basis of time would be as well. Maybe the math would make sense if one thing we thought as being so important wasn't even part of the equation. As a matter of fact, most of the variables considered to be important may not be a factor at all. I really have no idea about the mathematics to describe our universe, and I'm not talking shit about the people that are trying to figure it out. A conceptual understanding of physics is needed to understand our environment better. In fact, Neil deGrasse Tyson was the man who introduced me to my new way of thinking. Thank you, Neil, for dedicating your life to the pursuit of knowledge. Anyone interested in understanding your universe should check out his work. I was simply trying to state, you will always find what you are seeking, without exception. So, be aware of your object of attention. So what does this mean for everyday folks? You don't have to understand the mathematics to understand how to use the environment around you to your advantage. Imagine you are a small trout trying to swim upstream. The water is flowing past you incredibly quickly, and you are having a difficult time struggling swimming against the current. When you learn more about who you are, and you become more aware of your vibrations to a point of possessing the ability to change it at will, you will finally be able to stop swimming against the metaphorical current. For the first time in your life, you have the ability to sit back and enjoy the ride.